My dear friend, have you ever sat alone on a rainy afternoon, just staring out the window, and felt like the whole world had somehow forgotten you exist? Ugh, that feeling of loneliness. It's a strange one. But I've realized something. In our modern world, we often see it as a kind of failure, don't we? A void that needs to be filled immediately. We run from it, we hide from it. We try to drown it out with noise, with busyness, with fleeting pleasures. But have you ever stopped and wondered, is all loneliness really that dark? Are all silences empty? When I started flipping through the pages of old books, the myths and scriptures that shaped humanity, I stumbled upon something breathtaking. In these grand tales, loneliness is often portrayed as, as a necessary journey, a noble trial, even a privilege. It's not a pit for you to fall into, but a high mountain for you to conquer. And from the top of that mountain, your view of the world and of yourself will change forever. So today, I invite you to walk with me. Let's step into the world of these great solitary souls. We won't analyze them. Let's just listen to their stories and see what the silence taught them. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn something for our own moments of quiet too. First, let's begin with the most familiar image, shall we? That of a man sitting in perfect stillness under an ancient tree. That was Prince Siddhartha before he became the Buddha. He had to endure a solitude so absolute, so extreme. But you see, he wasn't just alone with physical hunger. He was alone with an entire army of demons screaming inside his own mind. Those demons, they were the embodiment of every human fear, every desire, every doubt. He couldn't call for help. He had no one to lean on. He was utterly alone. His silence, it wasn't emptiness, it was a battlefield. And his stillness wasn't inaction, it was an act of incredible courage, the courage to look his own inner demons right in the eye without flinching. We today, with our endless distractions, we often run from our own feelings. But the Buddha's story teaches us that the only way through the storm is to walk right into its center. The solitude he chose was the sacred space for that inner battle to unfold. It shows us that, the greatest spiritual strength isn't about never feeling fear. No. It's about having the courage to sit alone with your fear until it simply dissolves. And it's amazing, isn't it? How one person's inner journey can create ripples that change the world. And that makes me think of another kind of solitude. One not for conquering the self, but for carrying a mission for an entire community. I'm thinking of the story of the prophet Moses on Mount Sinai. He too was alone for 40 days, completely separated from his people who were waiting, confused, down below. His loneliness must have been so heavy. Heavy with responsibility, with doubt. But that total separation from the noise of the crowd, it was essential to hear the voice of God, of truth, of conscience. You sometimes have to close your ears to the world's chatter. Moses' solitude is a profound lesson in leadership. A true leader, I think, must sometimes dare to walk alone, to believe in a vision that no one else can see just yet. They need that quiet to distill the most essential values before they can return and lead others. That solitude wasn't about distance. It was a necessary preparation to connect with his people on a much deeper, truer level. But my friend, history and myth aren't always so gentle, are they? Sometimes solitude isn't a sacred choice. No, sometimes it's a wound, a sentence born from a cruelest rejection. This brings me to Hephaestus, the lame blacksmith god of Greek mythology, thrown from Mount Olympus by his own mother simply for being imperfect. His loneliness tasted of salt, the salt of tears and the bitterness of rejection. The world of perfect gods had no place for him. And yet, right there, in the depths of that rejection, an extraordinary power was born. He didn't try to be like them. He embraced his difference. He made a volcano's heart his kingdom, and he turned his pain into the fire of his forge. He immersed himself in his work, in the clang of the hammer, in the glowing metal, and from the hands of this outcast came the most magnificent masterpieces the world had ever seen. The story of Hephaestus. Oh, it's a powerful roar that tells us, don't be afraid of what makes you different, because that might just be your most unique source of power. When you can't fit in, you must create a value so unique that the world has to come to you. The solitude of rejection, it can be a forge. It will burn away the weak, but it will temper the strong souls, making them harder and brighter than ever before. Once you've learned to turn pain into power like that, wow, being alone is no longer something to fear. In fact, you might even choose it as a symbol of your inner strength. And this makes me think of the image of the rhinoceros in Buddhist scripture, walking majestically alone. It wasn't cast out. It wasn't on a mission for anyone else. It simply walks. This solitude is a declaration of independence. It's a quiet statement that says, my peace does not depend on your approval. It's not about being antisocial. It's about being pro-focus. It's about choosing to preserve your energy for your own path. This is true spiritual freedom. It's freedom from the fear of being left out, one of the most primal fears we have. So, when a soul reaches that state of self-reliance, that kind of peace, what happens next? What does that solitude evolve into? Well, it seems all the old stories agree on one thing. It becomes wisdom. And this is our final image. The wise hermit in the fairy tales. They always live alone in the most remote places. Why? Because wisdom isn't born from noise. It's born from observation, from contemplation, from silence. The hermit takes a step back so they can see the entire painting. They detach from the daily ambitions and squabbles of society so their mind can become as clear and still as a mountain lake. And on the surface of that lake, the deepest truths are reflected with perfect clarity. They teach us that solitude can be a tool for mental purification. Just as we need a quiet room to read a good book, we need quiet spaces in our soul to read the laws of life itself. They aren't lonely. Oh no, they are in a deep, intimate conversation with the universe itself. So, here we are at the end of our little journey, my friend. We've walked through the inner battlefield of a Buddha, stood on the mountaintop with a prophet, felt the heat of a god's forge, walked with the proud rhinoceros, and sat in the quiet cave of a sage. Each story shows us that loneliness isn't a single state, and it certainly isn't a dead end. It's a space, an environment, a profound opportunity. It can be a chrysalis for transformation, a laboratory for creation, a mountaintop for perspective, a sacred temple for connecting with your truest self. These great stories, they don't tell us to run away from society. They just gently suggest that we should not be afraid of the moments when we are alone with ourselves. So, the next time, the very next time you find yourself in an empty room, please don't rush to break down the door. Try staying for a little while. Take a deep breath. Listen to the silence. Who knows? It might not be a prison, but the freest space you've ever been in. And maybe in that quiet, you might just hear the truest voice of your own heart and discover a strength you never, ever knew you possessed.